Warning: the following content may contain elements that are not suitable for some audience. Accordingly, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, Anarchy fans. John the Body Johnson here with an exclusive interview with the man that we saw recently return, Dany Only. Dany, first of all, I want to thank you for this time and welcome you back here to the Landmark Arena.
Thanks, man. Yeah, homecomings are pretty sweet, and I don't care how long you've been doing this. When you hear people, chant "welcome back," so it's a pretty good feeling to know that you were missed and that you're actually welcome back. So appreciate you.
Yeah, and it was great here. And speaking of that, when you did come out and finally speak here to the Landmark Arena, we heard a lot, but I felt that there was so much more, so much there to unbox, if you will. So I wanted to give you this time and kind of go into depth of some of the things that you said. So might as well start from the beginning. You talked about a childhood, lack of a father figure. Let's talk about that, man. What was that like growing up for you and having that on your plate?
Well, so the thing that I want to preface this with is my story is kind of messed up. That's not to say anybody else didn't have it worse. There's a lot of people who were raised without a father. There's a lot of people who went through way worse than I did. And it's not to get sympathy. The main reason that I wanted to do this, and honestly, anytime I talk to anybody, it's because if there's one person that's sitting there and they see it, and they're like, man, I went through that too, and it'll be okay. That's the main thing for me. My first three memories of childhood aren't the best ones. The first memory is going through a plate glass window when I was a kid, waking up with a piece of glass going through my knee. Second one was getting chased through the neighborhood by a couple punk teenagers in a Camaro, and had a little giz wheel next to them. And they were revving that giz wheel saying, "We're gonna cut you up, boy." Now, looking back, I know it's just a couple of dickhead teenagers having fun, but as a kid, I legit thought I was gonna get cut up. And my third memory is honestly is being repeatedly raped by the guy that lived across the street from me. Now, I dealt with that for a long time, and was real closed up about it, but when I finally just let it out and let it be known and kind of shed light on it, my mom was obviously surprised. My brother was shocked because he knew the guy, bought his first car from him. But when I finally just let it go, it lost its hold on me. And I know a lot of people have talked to me on the side, they're like, man, same thing happened to me, I can never admit it. I'm like, why? It wasn't my fault, it wasn't your fault. It happens, there are horrible people in the world. So those three events pretty much shaped, my childhood growing up.
And so from that childhood, and correct me if I'm wrong, you grow up, you've gone through the bullying, you've gone through the rape, you've gone through all of this, and then you graduate high school, you go into the military.
Well, I actually didn't graduate. I dropped out my second sophomore year. I quit school in the 10th grade, and I just, I figured that it was a lot more fun to hang out and do drugs than it was to go to school. But then I went back and honestly gave it another effort. I was out of place. I didn't fit in school, obviously, and school was honestly just boring to me. I mean, it was just boring. There was no stimulation, no mental stimulation, no nothing. So I quit again and ended up bouncing around with a few construction jobs, and I quit the last one that I had. And I remember that day my mom said, "You need to be home when I get home." And she came home with my brother, who's 12 years older than me, and I knew then that something was rotten in Denmark. So she said, "You got to go." So at 16, I got kicked out. I lived on the streets, bounced around from house to house to house. Did every drug I can get my hands on. Was drinking a lot, and then joined the Army in February of '99.
Okay, and that is kind of where this comes into play, because it was being stationed is where you first watched wrestling from the Landmark Arena back in the Wild Side days.
Yes, so I was in Germany in 2001, so it was right around the time Anarchy started. And I, obviously see Wildside and knew about Wildside, but I'd be working a 12-hour shift and just watching, all of these videos of Landmark Arena and NWA Anarchy in its early days, the tail end of Wildside, and I just remember watching all of these people, Azrael and Rain Man and Gabriel and Onyx and just all these names that came through here, AJ, Ron Killings, this, and I was just like, that's where I want to be. That's where I want to wrestle. And 2004, I got stationed in Tampa, And I had been training for about a month on each leave, because you get a month of leave from the Army every year. So I would come home and train, and then go back to Germany, and then come home and train. 2004, I got stationed in Tampa, and that's when I really got the opportunity to start training. Trained for a solid 8-9 months down there with NWA Florida guys, and started wrestling. And the whole time I was just like, man, I want to get to Georgia, I want to get to Anarchy. And 2008, I finally took a job. They got me here in Atlanta, and I still remember the day I came to the arena, and Slim J was in the back nursing something that happened to him. Todd Sexton was back there, a few other people. And I just walked up and said, hey, here's my DVD. My name's Dany Only, and it was really awesome. And I got to say thanks for this, Chavis. Oh wait, I can't do that anymore. But Chavis, everybody who I came to talk to said, hey, I'm Dany Only. They're like, oh yeah, Rayman put you over. So me and Chavis are really tight, and he knew me from Florida, and he was like, hey, you're going up to Georgia, man. I'll get the word out. But I remember in the back, gave Slim my DVD, or actually I think I gave it to Todd. I'm like, hey, there's my DVD, and he probably took it home and used it as a coaster that night. But started working at APW, which is a close relationship with Anarchy, and started training there and working there, and slowly worked my way up, and eventually I was here.
Okay, so then you come here and you're part of one of the most prolific tag teams here, the Hate Junkies, along with Strychnine. Lots of opportunities are coming your way, you're going places, but then some of the demons start coming out, and one of those things is Dragon Con, which is a huge event in Atlanta that also features, not just all the great comic book characters and superheroes, but also wrestling. And it's an honor to wrestle on that card. And you went to a Dragon Con, and it didn't end out quite the way you wanted it to.
Yeah, I had this really stupid idea that I was going to go drink for drink with Iceberg. And that was, in retrospect, a really stupid idea. But to my defense, I was just sitting in a chair in the hallway, and I decided the floor would be a lot more comfortable, so I laid down and was waiting to leave, and somebody called the paramedics. Paramedics came in, she started shaking me, I puked all over, and then she said, F that, he's coming. So they threw me in an ambulance, and I woke up in Grady the next morning. Actually woke up in the hallway, and across from me was a guy who was handcuffed to the gurney with a gunshot wound. So I woke up and walked out the front door, and after a little bit of coaxing, they asked me to come back inside. I came back in, called the wife, and that went over like a fart in church. So yeah, that was my Dragon Con memory, is leaving in an ambulance to go to Grady.
And of course, as it is in this industry, the sport, people will talk. Mm-hmm. So then Dany's dependability starts coming into question because of the demons. Did you hear that talk at that time? What did it do to you, psychologically?
At that time, no. I had a reputation as, being a drunk, being an alcoholic, but I wasn't showing up to shows drunk. I would wait until the show was over, and to Strychnine's benefit, I would always tell him, I'll drive us there, you drive us home. And he's straight edge, and he always watched out for me, so after a show, I would just get shit-faced, and he would drive me home. But then, it started getting where I'd have a couple drinks at the show, and then I started getting, when everything started piling up, I'd have a drink on the way of the show. And I never performed drunk. I did drink a few beers, like before matches and stuff. But I don't think I was ever unreliable. But I did start to hear later that people were hesitant to use me because they didn't know which Dany they were going to get. I don't really know if I backed out of any shows or just didn't go because I was drunk, but it definitely wasn't a good look, and it wasn't something that a promoter wanted to put on their show.
Right. And so things go on, you're still getting your bookings, you're still wrestling in places, but then 2011 comes, and the unreliable Dany Only, pardon that, but shows up again, WrestleMania weekend, Hall of Fame, for the WWE Hall of Fame. You were asked to leave, I understand.
Yeah, I was in this phase, this internet smart mark phase where, Vince hates wrestling, WWE is the antithesis of wrestling and sports entertainment, and acted like I had some leg to stand on. And I was in the audience just yelling out, you're all whores, because, guys were going up on stage that a year ago had just shit all over Vince McMahon, and yelling Vince hates wrestling, and again, looking back on it, it was really stupid, but I was really drunk. So yeah, I was asked to leave the Hall of Fame, and kind of embarrassing, you know, looking back on it. It's one of those things I wish I could go back and change, but you know, you can't undo history. But yeah, it definitely wasn't a good look for me.
So also during this time, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, other parts of your life start unraveling as well. You're going through a marriage, going through a divorce, and this is when things kind of start backing out for you. Is that?
Yeah, so towards the end of 2012, I took a year off to go work overseas, and I had this goal. I'm going to go over there, get in the best shape I can, come back, and I'm just going to take the wrestling world by storm. And half of that I did successfully. I was in the best shape I'd ever been. I was fit, you know, working out every single day, eating right, and I came back in the best shape I'd ever been in. About a month after I got back, I broke my foot, which I had broke when I was in Afghanistan. So break my foot, all right, cool, no problem. Still gonna drive, still eating right, still going to the gym on a knee scooter, you know, 3 times a week, maintaining my weight and everything. I get cleared Friday, and that Sunday I wrestle in Beyond Wrestling up in Rhode Island and break my arm. So I come home and get surgery on my arm. Another hiccup in the road, but I'm like, you know, still gonna do it, still gonna drive. Had surgery, and a week after surgery, my wife sits me down and says, I don't love you anymore. So she leaves. Okay, that's kind of rough. It kind of felt like it was coming, you know, it was one of those things where the writing was on the wall, so to speak. Ethan Case and Kevin Pierce moved in with me, tried to keep me up in good spirits. A few months after that, Joey Kidman died of an overdose. Joey was like my little brother. The whole time I was in Afghanistan, I don't know if it's because he was a freaking insomniac or what, but we would talk every single day. I mean, every day for hours on end, just going back and forth about wrestling, about bands, about chicks, about everything. And I was actually at work when his girlfriend called me and she said, Joey's great. And as soon as she said that, I kind of knew he was dead. I went to go see him in ICU, and he was laying there with all these tubes hooked up to him, and I whispered in his ear, you know, come on kid, kick out, we got this. And I don't think it really set in until I went to his funeral, because I walked down the aisle, went to his casket, and I reached over and kissed him on the forehead, and I remember specifically just reeling back because it was ice cold. And that just really hit me hard. He's my best friend in the world. He had a ton of potential, and he just messed up. The overdose.
So to lay on that, and you sit there and you see your friend overdosing, and I know yours was a lot of alcohol. Was this the beginning of a wake-up call for you, or was this something that maybe took you deeper into a dark place?
Definitely not a wake-up call. It took me into a deeper place. I'd gone through kind of a breakup with my girl, who's now my wife, thankfully. So things weren't going that great. And I was living in an apartment in Athens, and we had a puppy that I had gotten as a playmate for my dog Muda. And I'd always did this thing where I put him in the crate and cover him with a blanket at night, like you do, like a bird or whatever, tell him to go to sleep. Well, this night, I had put him in the closet and didn't know there was no air ventilation in the closet. So I remember waking up in the morning and going to take a shower and thinking, wow, Cody's really quiet. And I opened up the door, and he was pressed up against the cage with his tongue hanging out of his mouth. He had overeaten and died. And that was the single most traumatic moment in my life. I mean, I've been overseas, I've seen people shot, I've seen bodies, I've seen, any litany of horrible things. But to know that this creature I was responsible for, and intentionally or not, I killed him. And that just drove me over the edge, man. I got to the point where I was just drinking constantly, smoking as much weed as I possibly could, just anything to not think about what was going on.
So we have this, and time's still moving on. You're going deeper into this dark place, and then quite possibly the last thing that you would need to do is take on a huge responsibility, and that became this place, the Landmark Arena. I remember it vividly. It was Hustle Environment 2015. You came up to me, and you told me you had just bought the place from the late Charles Anschutz. Where were you at mentally coming into this?
Mentally, I thought, I love this place, and I wanted to keep going. There was rumors about other people potentially buying it, and people would come to me like, I'm leaving, I'm out of here. And at that time, a lot of the regulars were getting ready to leave. They didn't like the environment. It was no fault of Charles. He was splitting up Southern Fried and Anarchy, and he told me straight up, I just couldn't give it everything it needed. So, I had just got divorced, had a butt ton of money, and I said, I'm gonna buy it. And I didn't do what a lot of people do. I didn't buy the company just to put myself over, make myself a champ and all that. I just wanted a place for the boys to keep working. And that ended up being kind of my downfall because I gave everybody what they asked for. Guys that were here for X amount of money were now telling me, yeah, I need this, and it was triple and 4 times the amount. And I was like, all right, well, I want you on the show, so I'm gonna pay. And I'll say this, outside of maybe 2 instances, every show I ran, the envelope was in the back with the names and paying it before the show even started. I named it Why We Wrestle, and everybody shits on that name, which, that's cool. It's not everybody's flavor. But the reason I named it that is I didn't want to try to be Anarchy 2.0. Anarchy had its own family, its own path. I wanted something that was distinctly different, and everybody has their own reason for why they wrestle. Some want to go to the WWE, some want to go to Japan, some want to, just wrestle. So that for me, Why We Wrestle, that was the impetus behind it. But I couldn't do what needed to be done. I was drinking in excess, wasn't giving it the due diligence, wasn't doing the promotion, wasn't hitting towns and putting up flyers, and was just kind of relying on the clout of this building to keep it going. And it just didn't work out that way.
Do you feel that maybe some of the stress that you were putting on yourself to keep this building going and to take care of the boys and to, basically preserve the heritage of this place, do you think maybe that led to more drinking and more pressure on yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. It was the point where if I would run a show and balance zeros, I was okay. But anytime I was losing money, it would just hit me harder. I'd drink a 6-pack on the way home, and wake up the next morning feeling like crap and wondering what I could do, what to do wrong. And then instead of hitting the drawing board and coming up with new plans, I would just drink again, and just constantly drinking. And it didn't allow me to focus on what needed to be done. And I failed miserably running the company.
So you turned over, reluctantly, I can imagine. You turned over, it goes under new management, it breathes new life into this building, and then we see you return in 2018 for a very brief period. Kind of take us through you coming in and why all of a sudden the exodus out, because it was very brief, very quick.
Yeah, I had come in to do a few shows. One that I'm eternally grateful for was Hardcore Hell. When me and Strychnine faced Tank and Iceberg, and to me, working Tank and Iceberg in this building was monumental of its own. But also just to get the respect from both of those guys. Those guys I've looked up to for a while, and to get that nod of respect from them afterwards was great. But even that, couldn't cure me, I guess. And that's the thing, is even when things were going good for a while, I'd always find a way to mess it back up again and end up, drinking again. And the exodus was, I just wasn't in it anymore. I found myself in the locker room just mad. I love wrestling. I've loved wrestling since I was a little kid. It's the only thing I've ever wanted to do. Everything else was a necessity to pay bills. But I look back, and I think that's what gets me the most is if I would have put in the work, I'm not going to say I would have been a superstar, but I'm confident that I would have been in a much better position than I am now. But I didn't. I didn't put in the work. It's my fault. And I see a lot of people, they want to blame everybody, blame the system, blame the bookers, blame the promoters. It's your fault, period. You put in the work, and it will come to you. And I didn't. So it was the fact of me, why am I not home with my kid? Why am I not home with my wife? Why am I not home with my dog? Why am I here doing something I really don't like doing anymore? So I just said, you know what, that's it, I'm done. And I just quit. But the whole time I was still, following wrestling and paying attention to the local scene, and something was just missing, and something didn't feel right. I didn't like the way I left, essentially. I didn't like having someone hang the boots up for me, even though that person was myself. It was the alcohol and the addiction that forced me to give up on it. So I wanted to come back and put the wrong things right, so to speak, and just wanted to leave on my own terms. So what did it, honestly, was last July, actually the day before my kid's 18th birthday. I was in the process of selling my bike and had been drinking all day. And for some reason, a friend of mine was like, "Hey, you want some Coke?" "Yeah, sure." What am I thinking? I haven't done Coke since I was a stupid teenager. But yeah, I did a couple lines of Coke, and then that led me to drink even more. And then at that point, I was just done. So I hopped on the bike and was riding the bike around the Athens perimeter, about 120, 130 miles an hour, dead ass the whole way. And as I'm riding, I'm just sitting there thinking, like, man, if somebody pulls out in front of me, it's cool. The story's over, man. I don't have to worry about anything anymore. And in that moment, I wasn't afraid. But when I woke up the next morning and thought about what actually happened and thought about what could have happened, it scared the shit out of me. Pictured, my wife having to get a phone call from State Patrol. And then I pictured, my wife breaking down and then having to call Dexter and tell Dexter that your dad is dead. And having to call my mom and say, "Sorry, your boy's gone." And that scared me. And that was at the point where I was like, all right, this is enough, because if I don't do something to get my life straight, then it's going to be taken away from me. And I just couldn't squander it anymore. Like I said, other people have had it way worse than me and have gone on to do way better things. So I was like, I'm not going to let this be the end of the story. I'm going to finish it. I'm going to write the last few chapters. So I went into a rehab program, and I fixed my relationship with God. I don't like religion. I don't like religion because religion is men trying to dictate the word of God, and it's full of condemnation and performance praise, and you have to do this and you have to do that. And one thing that one of the counselors there told us, and it's something I believe, is the difference between biblical Christianity and every other dogma in the world is every other religion is what can you do for God, and biblical Christianity is what can God do for you. So, I don't want people to think that, I'm judging them or anything. Look, we're all human beings on this stupid little blue marble. And whatever you choose to do for you is good, so long as you don't hurt any other people. I don't really care. It's not my place to judge. But with me, I turned my will over to God, and it brought me a peace that I'd never known before, because it's not that God's going to do this for me, but it was like, if I turn my will over to Him, and if I don't try to question what's coming next, what do I do here, and just do the right things, and be nice to people, follow God's words, because I think whether or not you're religious or not, everybody can agree, it's a historical fact, there was a man named Jesus Christ who walked the earth. And I can't find any text that talks about him being a horrible person. He loved and cared for his fellow man, and he helped the sick and the needy, and he was just cool. Jesus was the original punk rocker. He didn't care. He just did. Right. So I just followed that, and I remember the day that I got baptized. August 13th, 2020. And when I got baptized, I legitimately just felt like a new person coming out of the water. I didn't hold on and harbor all these ill wills and ill feelings towards everybody else, towards myself. I just felt new, and that peace that I found, I just want for everybody. And if it's through Jesus, great. If it's not, great. But I just want people to feel the change that I felt, which is I'm not worried anymore. Really don't have any stress. What happens if you get hurt tomorrow? I get hurt tomorrow. Big deal. What happens if this? I don't worry about it. I just take it as it comes, and I do the best I can. And that has what really made it easier for me to gain sobriety. In 218 days now, I haven't had the desire or urge to drink. I've been around it. I've been, Brad Cash, actually, we were at a show and he opened a beer, and about 10 minutes later he goes, "Oh shit, man, I'm sorry, and is this okay?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm a grown man, that's fine." I'm not fighting the urge because I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't want to go down that same path.
Right. So I want to close this with a very difficult question, or you may not find it difficult after hearing that. As I mentioned earlier, people talked about the unreliable Dany.
Mm-hmm.
What is it in you that won't have that happen again? Basically, to have people not talk. Is there a chance of that happening again, or how do you feel?
Is there a chance of people talking?
Oh, no, being the unreliable Dany.
Oh, no.
Not creeping up again.
No. The main thing is I'm not an addict anymore. Well, I'll always be an addict, I guess, but I'm not in active addiction. I'm in active recovery. I'm good. And again, this isn't a platform to talk down on anybody. There's guys that can drink and have a good time. Cool. Have a beer on me, man. That's awesome. Do you. But it's not controlling my life anymore. I'm controlling my life. I'm in control of what happens here. I play the cards as they're dealt. I make the best of the situation that I can. People are still going to talk. Somebody is going to watch this and be like, yeah, whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And cool, that's great. I don't care. You're not paying my bills. When I was down at the bottom, you weren't there picking me up. So I don't really care what you have to say. I just hope that one person can watch and be like, man, he can do it, I can do it. I'm nobody special. I'm just a man. That's it. I've been broken, I've been beaten, I've been scarred, and I just gonna keep going. And if I can do it, literally anybody can. You just gotta wake up every day and think like, what's the point? What am I here for? Find that, chase that, and I don't see me going down that same path again. I don't know what tomorrow brings. But the fact that when I leave here tonight, my plan is to go home and eat some food and watch a scary movie as opposed to stopping to buy a 6-pack of beer and then deciding when I get home what I'm going to do. That tells me, and that's my everyday decision, it just tells me that I'm not that same person anymore. That person got buried and it's gone. And now all I can do is walk the walk, so to speak.
Well, Dany, I want to thank you for your time. Congratulations on your sobriety and getting right. Fans, if you want to see Dany Only, he will be here at the Landmark Arena Saturday night, March the 27th for Anarchy Wrestling. For more, check out the Anarchy Facebook page. I'm John Johnson. He's Dany Only. We'll see you next time.